Hi everybody, today I'm with my wife in Tapingjiang on top of Jingmai Mountain, and we're now in He Huan tea garden. This is a garden that we've used for a couple of years now for our Jingmai Gulan. We've also released a single garden cake from He Huan, and today I would like to have a walk with you throughout these tea gardens, and I don't know what we're gonna find. Let's just have a look, okay? Come on, let's go. So we're in early summer right now, and the monsoon has arrived on Jingmai, on all of Yunnan, so it's raining quite often. I wanted to shoot this video yesterday, but we were interrupted by a heavy shower. So yeah, thanks to the rain, the landscape is very green, and life is thriving in the tea gardens. So it's a very peaceful time in Jingmai now, and I would like to first show you have our first stop here by this big tree. You can see they put a number on the bigger tea trees in Jingmai Mountain. They did that quite a few years ago. I think it was some part of some government research or monitoring or something. And well, you can see that it has well, it's already sprouted. You see, like, you could had we come like maybe a couple of days earlier, this could probably have been harvested. You can see that the leaves are still tender, but there's no bud. But I think it would still be harvestable. You can see, you just look at the color, and all the lighter colored leaves are harvestable. However, maybe since it's a big tree here, maybe they decided to skip this harvest. You can see this, like, you can get one flush like this. I'm gonna eat it. It's always refreshing. What you can see also is this. So you can see that despite what everybody is saying in Yunnan, like, there's like a kind of taboo around pruning. I don't know. The customers don't want to hear that the tea trees are pruned, but I can tell you, if you don't prune the tea trees, they're going to grow super, super tall, like the ones we've seen in Laos. And so even the big trees are pruned, actually. So you can see this is how they prune. They just cut it with a machete. You can see a lot of these. It's no problem. It's just you don't have to do it too often. So let's continue on the path. Oh, I'd like to show you. Maybe you can have a look here. Can you see the spiders in the middle? Maybe you can zoom. And can you see the spiders here? I'm on their net here, and these are well, they are our best friends in summer because they prevent a lot of pests from coming. And there's also a kind of big wasp that's just flown away. So most of the time you would want to harvest. Well, that's also a debate, should you harvest the summer tea or not? I would say most of the customers, like the tea drinkers, tea buyers, would say you shouldn't harvest them because it will yield to over harvesting, etc., and lower quality tea. But I'm going to show you a good reason why you should harvest them. Look at this. So this is a tea fruit, okay? And if you don't pick the tea, if you miss a flush, the tea tree is going to feel very comfortable, and it's going to grow some fruits, because you know that once we have satisfied our basic needs, it's natural, we just want to reproduce. And so the tea trees, they do the same. Once they feel they have enough leaves, they will just grow fruits. The problem is that the energy available, the nutrients, are not free, so you have to pay for those fruits. And that means when you grow fruits, you don't grow leaves. So probably these tea trees, which have already grown fruits, you can see here too, these they will have a much lower yield for at least a couple of months, and probably maybe up until next year. So for example, if you want to harvest your autumn tea, well, you will have a lower yield if your tea tree has grown fruits during the early summer. But you could say that whether the tea tree grows leaves or fruits, it's quite the same. It still sucks nutrients, so the tea tree has the same stress. Let me show you something else. We can have a look at the trunk, and you can see on the trunk you have a lot of moss and lichen here. Can you show here? This is lichen. So lichen is interesting because it's a symbiosis. Actually, you have two organisms in lichen. You have an algae and a fungi. So usually the algae, well, they can only live in water, but they kind of made a deal with the fungi, and they have some reciprocal benefits, you could say. It's called a symbiosis, and that's how the algae can still grow on the tree bark. I don't know too much about lichen. This is just some bribes of memories from my biology courses at university. But anyway, yeah, you can have a look. Lots of parasitic plants on the tree trunks, on the bark. And what's really surprising is that all these parasitic plants and stuff that grows on the trees, they mostly grow on old tea trees. You won't find them much on the new trees. So maybe it's because of the size of the tea trees. Like if you have a bigger trunk, maybe it allows for better access to resources or something like that. Well, it's always something that I've thought about, and I've never really had an answer. Oh, you can come here. We can have a look here. You can see that some tea trees can have disease, and maybe this was a fungi or a bacteria, that dug into the tree. So it dug a hole, and so now half of the trunk is damaged. So sure, it can kill the tree. You can see here too. You can come down here and you can see that this one was attacked by some disease. Eventually, that's probably what kills most of the trees. Not only the tea trees, but they're in a constant struggle between a struggle for survival between the pressure they get from all the disease, the parasites and stuff, and what saves them is just the photosynthesis, the energy they can produce, the nutrients they can catch. But eventually, it's very sad, but we know they will all die from either from frost or from some pest or disease. It's part of nature, so when a tree dies, it's not so sad in the end, because it gives it gives way to many more species to live on. And that's actually the difference between a primary and a secondary forest. A primary forest has a complete cycle. It means the oldest, the species that live the longest in the ecosystem have had time to die and regrow. And because like if you go in the jungle, you have those big trees, and when they fall, they create a specific niche, which is like half shaded and half in the sun, because there's a gap in the canopy, and that allows for specific species to thrive, species that maybe you wouldn't find otherwise. But anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it's always cool to talk about ecology. And so, well, it's not that bad actually, because all the living part in the tree trunk is on the bark, between the bark and the inside, I think it's called the xylem. Okay, so all that woody part in the middle, it's just useful to carry water through the tea tree. But the most important actually is the crust. So even if the tree has big holes in it, it doesn't necessarily affect too much its physiology. Well, of course, then the structure is fragilized, and well, it might just fall, of course. And so you can see that this environment is partially shaded. Can you film just what's above here? I want people to have a look at the half canopy. You couldn't really say it's a canopy because it's not a very dense shade coverage, but you can see all the shade trees that bring some partial shade to the gardens. And probably the amount of shade you get in the garden has an influence on the physiology of tea, and therefore on the taste. So when you visit a garden, it's always cool to notice like how many shade trees you have, how much shade you have generally in your tea garden. Now, yeah, I would also like you to have a look at the soil. Let's talk about the soil a little bit. So you can see that here we don't have that many weed. Well, first it's because it's just the beginning of the rainy season, so it's normal that at this time of the year we don't have that much. But some people are already weeding, especially in the less shaded fields, like our natural tea gardens. I haven't checked lately, but it might be time to consider a first weeding. But here there's not much weed, also because you have a thick litter, like all the leaves from the big trees above, they fall on the ground and they cover the ground, which prevents the weed from growing too much. And if I dig in, you can see that I can dig very easily in this soil, which means it has a lot of organic matter, and it's also very dark. So organic matter really helps the structure of the soil, and that's why it's so, well, it's such a smooth soil, it's very nice to the touch. You should really come here and touch this soil. You can even smell it. Yeah, it smells so good. And so it's just sand, it's really sandy soil. It's a very unfertile soil, you could say, because we're at the top of a mountain. We're on a plateau here, so it's good to bring that organic matter to also balance and help a bit for the soil structure. I mean, a sandy soil is okay, it will always be easy to work, but it will have a hard time retaining nutrients and water. So it's better if you combine it with that organic matter. You will get better properties. You can have a look here. This is a dead tree, and inside the dead tree new stuff grows. Interestingly, here the soil is more moist, and just seems to have a little bit more clay in it. Okay, so now that we have walked a little bit on this path and checked a few tea trees, I think it will be time for us to part ways. We've arrived to this lovely little hut in the middle of the forest, and I think that's the end of our journey today. I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.